Thank you, everyone, to the Million Vegan Grandmothers podcast. Convergence. I'm so used to doing podcasts lately. It's imprinted in my brain. Speaking of podcasts, the Million Vegan Grandmothers have done a lot of podcasts lately. And if you're a grandmother and you're here right now, please feel free to interview someone over Zoom if you would like to be on that podcast, if you would like us to put that on our podcast channel, because it's inviting all the grandmothers to come and do podcasts. And we have beautiful Mac that will edit that and put it on our YouTube channel and also on all of the platforms for the podcasts. So welcome to the Convergence of VCOP 15. And hello, beautiful Judy Carmen. And Judy's going to read the pledge and the declaration.
Hi, Tami. Thank you. Yes, I am ready. And this is a beautiful pledge. And first I'll read the pledge, as you said. And then after that is the declaration. And so listen to the words. These are really carefully crafted to express our longing as grandmothers to protect all of the grandchildren of all species. So the pledge is, I pledge to honor and protect all the animals, peoples, and Mother Earth herself by joyfully embodying and promoting an infinitely sustainable, cruelty-free vegan lifestyle that heals the climate and restores right relationships in the true spirit of Homo Ahimsa for all generations to come. And for anyone who is not familiar with the term Ahimsa, it is a Sanskrit word for non-harm and non-violence and peace, loving kindness, all those good things. But we're taking that from the book Homo Ahimsa. So now the declaration. We, the Million Vegan Grandmothers and Wisdom Carriers, join together using the power of love for the children and grandchildren of all beings, and for Mother Earth. Welcome our all peoples, regardless of gender, age, and official grandmother status, who align with the values of veganism and this declaration. We affirm the right of all beings to live in a natural, toxic-free environment, which allows all to thrive and to lead sacred, liberated, sovereign, and joyful lives. That's what we want, right? For everyone. The power of our love is unstoppable. We do not allow this planet and all who live here to be destroyed. We are creating a vegan world of peace, freedom, and loving kindness for all. We believe that the true nature of human beings and our highest calling is to be kind, compassionate, non-violent, and partners with, not dominators of, all life. We believe this is the time of the great awakening of humanity to leave behind the destructive nature of Homo sapiens and become who we've always been destined to be, Homo Ahimsa. As vegan grandmothers, we are here to midwife the birth of the new compassionate human and bring in the new era of a vegan Ahimsa world so that our children and grandchildren and those of all species can thrive and be free. Thank you, Tami.
Thank you, Judy. It always almost brings me to tears, that is what the grandmothers are about. And I'm imagining a world where we're going to be unstoppable. Thank you, Judy. And do we have Brenda Davis here? Can somebody bring Brenda up, please?
I'm here, Tami, but for some reason can you hear me?
Yeah.
For some reason, when I click my start video, I get a message that it cannot start. And
okay.
I've never had that before.
So our team, can anybody help with that? Our technical team here?
One thing, if you will turn on your camera, that will help.
Well, my camera's on. Let's see, video settings. I've selected my camera. I just keep getting this yellow message saying cannot start video. And I've used it hundreds of times. I've never had that message before. So yeah, I just don't know why.
I see. It may be that you used the camera for something else recently.
No, I haven't. This is all I ever use it for.
Okay.
So
Brenda, I'm wondering if you could go out and then just come right back in, and let's see if that helps.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's try that. Okay.
And the other thing we can do if that doesn't work, Tami, is that we could go off of spotlight view and do gallery view, and then she would be highlighted. Her image wouldn't be there, but we would know that she's speaking.
Let's see if we can get her up here.
Or alternatively, maybe she could come to us on her phone.
Here we go. Great, Brenda. It worked this time. Great. Okay. Yeah, so you're muted. There we go. Awesome. Can somebody unmute Brenda?
Oh, I just unmuted myself. Sorry about that.
Awesome. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be with you today. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm excited by what you're doing here. And just happy to be part of it. So thank you.
Brenda is our new honorary grandmother, vegan grandmother.
Thank you.
Could bring her into the organization and have this great wisdom of a woman who plays there in the plant-based movement. So I'm just going to read a little bit about Brenda from her bio. Brenda Davis, registered dietitian, is one of the world's leading plant-based pioneers and an internationally acclaimed speaker. She is widely regarded as a rock star of plant-based nutrition, whom Veg News has referred to as the godmother of vegan dietitians. Brenda has authored and co-authored 13 books with nearly 1 million copies in print in 15 languages. Her most recent work includes Plant-Powered Protein that she wrote with Corey, her beautiful son, Nourish, the definitive plant-based nutrition guide for families, which won gold in 2020. Nautilus Book Awards, and it was also a Canadian Book Award winner. The Kick Diabetes Cookbook. Brenda works internationally with healing diabetes through food. She has been a featured speaker at medical, nutrition, and dietetic conferences over 20 countries and 5 continents. You know, I found out about Brenda through a lot of the conferences that she spoke at. And I've known her for many, many years, even though she hasn't known me. I'm like, this woman is a rock star. A past chairman of the Vegetarian Nutrition Dietetic Practice Groups of the American Dietetic Association, Brenda has been promoting plant-based diets since making the transition herself in 1989. And I'm curious to ask Brenda if she had any say in changing this Canada Food Guide. I bet she has had a huge influence on it. Her personal and professional life goals are one and the same: to make this world a more sustainable, more health supportive and kinder place. Brenda's work focuses on ensuring that everyone who wishes to be plant-based can succeed brilliantly. In 2007, she was inducted into the Vegetarian Hall of Fame, and she was the 2022 recipient of the Plantition Project's Luminary Award. Wow, that's quite something, Brenda. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That award was really special because all of the people that had received, I think there were 7 other recipients, they were all men from the United States who were physicians. So I was the first Canadian, the first woman, and the first dietitian. So that was pretty exciting.
It's very exciting to have you. Many, many people know
Thank you.
in our circle. It's great that you.
Thank you.
So, Brenda, what major changes have you observed as a plant-based dietitian over the years?
Oh my goodness, it's unbelievable. Actually, to be honest with you, if I would have guessed where we'd be in 35 years. I started this about 35 years ago. I wouldn't have believed we would be where we are today. When I can remember back in university in 1978, I was already very interested in vegetarian nutrition. I was so excited that it was on the agenda. We were going to be talking about plant-based diets, and we learned two things. One, that vegetarian diets are risky, especially for pregnant women and children, and vegan diets are downright dangerous. And it was just like this slap on the wrist, and it was very discouraging. The medical and dietetic communities were on the same wavelength. They were not at all supportive of plant-based eating. And few people even knew what vegan meant. Vegan food wasn't, terribly appealing at that time. And I can remember vegan cheeses were like chunks of plastic. And there were very limited resources for people who wanted to be plant-based back then. And at the time, 35 years ago, when I made the decision to become vegan, I was a community nutritionist. And all of my nutrition education materials that I was using were really based on, Canada's dietary guidelines and Canada's food guide. And Canada's food guide back then was a circle. And there were 4 sections to the circle, and the top 2 sections were meat and dairy products. And so when I made this decision to become vegan, I thought, how could I even continue in my profession as a vegan? And I wasn't sure if there was even a single living other vegan dietitian on the planet. I had only ever met one vegetarian person in my whole life. I was living in Northern Ontario, and it wasn't exactly a place where you met vegetarians. But I just decided that I had to have the courage to stay and try to affect change from within my profession. And I made the decision to become vegan because I just couldn't justify not doing so, knowing what I knew about how we were raising animals, about the impact on the environment, and even about some of the more recent findings about human health. And but it was about a year after making the transition. I was very fortunate. My husband was completely more than willing to go on the journey with me. And we had 2 small children at the time. They're now 38 and 35, well, almost 39 and 36. My son will be 36 this week. But when I moved to Vancouver, I actually met other real life vegetarians, and even 2 vegetarian dietitians, which just shocked me. And they weren't vegan, they were vegetarian. But I got together with 2 of them, Basanto Molina and Victoria Harrison. We decided that it was time that dietitians actually wrote a guidebook for people who wanted to be vegetarian or vegan. And we pitched the idea, and we had a couple of publishers that said yes immediately. And we called the book Becoming Vegetarian, and within 6 months, it was a national bestseller. But I can tell you, we got some flack for writing this book, especially from the dairy industry, who wrote a 45-page rebuttal to our book, took a full-page ad out from our professional journal to try to discredit us. But we just kept moving forward. We started to get invited to speak at professional conferences, and we just kept moving forward. And as you said, continued to write many books. And I even had the opportunity to do a clinical research project in the Marshall Islands on diabetes, and did a lifestyle medicine demonstration project in Lithuania, and I've written many peer-reviewed journal articles, and done a lot of continuing education courses for physicians. And so right now, the changes, it's unbelievable. We now have the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, the Plantation Project, and these huge organizations for health professionals who are on this wavelength. I just couldn't have even imagined that 35 years ago. And they're getting, 1,500 or 2,000 participants at their conferences. Vegan food is now widely available and delicious. It's, in almost any restaurant, you can get a vegan option. People actually know what vegan means. There are all kinds of vegan dietitians. And, to put the cherry on top, Canada's food guide no longer has a designated dairy group. It's completely vegan friendly. And the food guide urges consumers to eat plant-based protein every day. It's really beyond my wildest dreams. And yes, we did have some definitely some impact, I think, on the direction the food guide took. And it's just, I wasn't sure that we could convince the powers that be to make those kinds of changes. But they did, and to their credit, they made a very strong commitment not to allow industry influence and to have the food guide completely science-based. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Amazing to listen to you, Brenda, because sometimes it feels a little bit overwhelming what we're facing, but listening to you really gives this sense that we're so heading in the right direction, and it's happening now. So, nice deep breath, and I believe it's yeah. So our theme is the sea of change, and one of the things that comes up around that is all the myths around veganism, and the omega-3 myth as one of them. But I wonder if you can speak about some of the nutritional myths that persist to this day that you have dispelled probably quite rapidly through your work and through your books, including the omega-3 myth as it pertains to the ocean and people thinking they need that omega-3 from fish.
Yeah, so, first of all, just so people know what we're talking about, there are two essential fatty acids that people can't make. They have to get them from food. And one is the omega-6 fatty acid called linoleic acid, and the other is the omega-3 fatty acid called alpha-linolenic acid. And we generally get lots of omega-6s, but we often fall short in omega-3s. And so omega-3s have become a really big deal. And alpha-linolenic acid is the omega-3 that comes from, that's found in fairly large amounts in some plant foods. It's important and very helpful, comes from things like flax seeds and chia seeds and hemp seeds and walnuts. Those are the key sources. Even soy foods have some. Greens, about half of the essential fatty acids in greens are omega-3s. It's just greens are so low in fat, you'd have to eat like a horse or a cow to get enough from just greens. But what a lot of people don't realize is that even more important than alpha-linolenic acid is these more biologically active omega-3s, EPA and DHA. And now it's possible to convert ALA or alpha-linolenic acid into long-chain omega-3s using, we do these conversions using enzymes, and we elongate and desaturate these, alpha-linolenic acid. But conversion is fairly inefficient. It's more efficient for women, especially young women, but it's fairly inefficient in older adults. It's inefficient in people with chronic diseases like hypertension and type 2 diabetes. And long-chain fatty acids are metabolized into hormone-like compounds that have a significant impact on, blood clotting and blood pressure and immune response and cell division and pain and inflammation and all of that. And these long-chain omega-3s favorably affect the composition and functioning of our cell membranes, their shape and permeability and flexibility and all of that. They're super important. And, you know, these are basically raw materials we use for building our brains and nervous systems and all of that. So it's super, super important. And I think that, you know, people get that long chain omega-3s are important, but people have for many years put a health halo on fish because in the human diet, it's the main source of long chain omega-3 fatty acids. And what most people don't know is that fish get their omega-3 fatty acids from these tiny plants in the ocean called microalgae. Now, people don't eat a bowl of microalgae, as you can imagine. It's tiny, tiny plants. But we're now starting to culture microalgae, and it is widely available as a supplement for people that don't want to eat fish. And you know, for many years, health authorities have been urging consumers to eat more fish. And you know, the usual recommendation is 2 servings of fish per week. And there is no question that replacing red meat with fish reduces health risk because fish is lower in saturated fat, it's higher in omega-3s. But that doesn't mean that replacing beans with fish would be a good idea. So I would say there are 3 main reasons why it's a good idea not to be consuming fish. And so, you know, first is that fish has absolutely devastating environmental consequences. And I don't need to get into that because you're talking about that with experts. But it you know, whether it's commercial fishing or fish farming, the ecological consequences are absolutely just shocking. The second is, you know, we're starting to recognize that fish actually are sentient beings. They feel pain, they suffer, and you know, we need to recognize that because the way that they're caught and the way that they're dyed creates a lot of pain and suffering. And so a lot of people choose not to consume fish for that reason. The third is that, and this is the one that I want to focus more on, is that fish are fairly high on the food chain, and so they accumulate environmental contaminants. And these environmental contaminants are associated with negative health outcomes. Of course, fish is only as clean as the water it's swimming in, and some of the most, you know, concerning contaminants include heavy metals, and probably the most concentrated in fish is mercury. But we also see lead, we see cadmium, and these are really quite problematic. And so with mercury is a neurotoxin. It can cause neurological and behavioral problems, mood swings, anxiety, depression, all sorts of things, difficulty breathing, muscle weakness. And fish is the #1 source of mercury in the diet. And there was actually a study done not too long ago that found 27% of fish tested in the US and almost 300 US streams exceeded the safe limits for mercury. And of course, dangers are highest in pregnant women and children. So this is something that we just need to be very aware of. The second thing is persistent organic pollutants like PCBs and dioxins. And these are, you know, they're carcinogens, no question. They can do a lot of damage, and they tend to be highest in bottom feeders like tilapia, striped bass, bluefish, sea trout, along with the big predatory fish are, you know, fairly significant sources. And then the other thing we need to be aware of is the nanoplastic particles in ocean fish, especially. There was a study recently that found that 25% of fish had plastic in their guts. And there was a study from Belgium that found that seafood eaters ingest up to 11,000 tiny pieces of plastic every year. And these plastics contain toxins like phthalates and BPA, and they're linked to increased cancer risk and hormone disruption. And then, of course, the other thing that we often don't think about is pesticides in farm fish. So they come from fish food, they come from the pesticides that are used to control sea lice as well, and that can end up in fish's flesh. And then the other thing that, this isn't an environmental contaminant, but fish is actually one of the very few direct food sources of TMAO, or trimethylamine N-oxide. And this is a very pro-inflammatory, pro-atherogenic compound. Other animal products contain TMAO precursors, but they don't contain preformed TMAO. So this is something else just to be aware of. So where it comes to me, when it comes to fish, it's yes, fish provides omega-3, but microalgae omega-3 supplements don't contain any of these environmental contaminants. They're produced in a clean environment, and they're produced in a way that doesn't rape the oceans. So they're cultured and grown. And so to me, they're a safer and much more ecologically sustainable and kinder way of getting omega-3s.
That was such a powerful answer, Brenda. And, mostly everyone on here is vegan. So this is going to be such an amazing interview for us to share with our people that think fish is a good choice if they're still going to eat flesh food. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, you bet.
How do you help ensure that your clients who want to become plant-based succeed brilliantly? I love how you say that. What does success mean? I studied with Dr. Gabriel Cousins, and he had a module on how to be 100% successful on a vegan diet. And so you probably have lots of tips for people to really understand how to be successful. And it's pretty easy if you're whole food plant-based, because we know that we don't have to be counting all these macronutrients. We eat whole food plant-based. We're full enough, soon enough with the fiber, and so yeah.
Well, first of all, I think success is really about being as healthy as possible for as long as possible. But it's also about being connected to the people that you love and enjoying food together. It's about having a good relationship with food. And for me, when I help clients who want to become plant-based, I really focus on helping them succeed brilliantly by just helping to ensure that they're meeting all of their nutrient needs. So most of their nutrient needs will be met with whole foods, but they also need to use or have a reliable source of B12, a reliable source of vitamin D, a reliable source of iodine. And I think what often people miss is all diets. It doesn't matter whether it's an omnivorous diet or a pescatarian diet or a lacto-ovo-vegetarian or a vegan diet. All diets need to be well planned. There are healthy vegan diets and there are unhealthy vegan diets. And one of the things that I find so interesting is a lot of the recent studies that have been done looking at people eating plant-based diets look at what they call the HPDI. It's a healthy plant-based diet index versus the UPDI, the unhealthy plant-based diet index. And consistently, what they find is people that are eating the HPDI have the highest HPDI, do remarkably well. They have reduced risk of all of these diseases. They live longer. It's amazing. But people who eat a UPDI are actually at a disadvantage and certainly are not doing any better than omnivores. And so what is an HPDI versus a UPDI? Well, a healthy plant-based diet is a plant-based diet that includes mainly whole plant foods, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices, and that's the bulk of the diet. They tend to be very low in highly processed foods. There's not a lot of added sugars. We don't have to be absolutely obsessive about these things, but we want to make sure that what foods predominate are real foods, that they're whole foods. And the UPDI, the unhealthy plant-based diet, is a diet that's mainly highly processed foods. You can get, every highly processed food practically that's an omnivorous food, you can get a vegan version of. And so you can eat, you can live on French fries, potato chips, and Coke and be eating a vegan diet. Doesn't mean it's healthy. So I think we really need to recognize that, while it's absolutely fine to eat some processed foods and even some highly processed foods, we want the bulk of the diet to be very unprocessed and to be whole foods. So I think that's really important. And then the other thing I would say is, don't assume that if you're eating a vegan diet, you're getting everything you need, because vegan diets are naturally very low in B12. You might get a little bit from mushrooms or, some fermented food, but most of the B12 will need to come from a supplement or fortified foods, B12 fortified foods like nutritional yeast. Vitamin D is also a nutrient that can be low in any diet, but there are fewer food sources in a vegan pattern than in an omnivorous pattern. Now, as I say this, I think it's really important to recognize that there are many nutrients that are much harder to get in omnivorous diets that, that people just get way more of in plant-based diets, like folate and vitamin E. And, there's a long list of potassium and magnesium and so on. But there are some nutrients that tend to fall short more often on vegan diets. Iodine is another one. And so we just need to make sure we've got sources of those sort of nutrients of interest in plant-based diets. And then the other thing I think, is that we need to help people succeed brilliantly. They need to like what they're eating. So it's super helpful if people can join a support group, join a vegetarian or vegan group that hosts potlucks, take vegan cooking classes, just get involved in the vegan community, educate yourself and get immersed in, eating really, really delicious food. And that, I think that really helps people succeed as well.
Thanks, Brenda. Yeah, that's so important. And one more question. We have a couple more minutes before we bring up all the grandmothers to give us a little update on what they've been enjoying doing as a vegan grandmother, as part of the Million Vegan Grandmothers. How would you recommend the vegan grandmothers whose influence on a daily basis, really, with their grandchildren, our food choices are often limited? How would you approach dietary conversations with our children in regards to our grandchildren? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, it's really challenging. I mean, I face that situation myself. I have 2 children, as I mentioned. My son is completely vegan. He doesn't have any children yet. He is married, but without children. My daughter is pescatarian and her husband is an omnivore. And they have 3 children, and they're mostly plant-based at home. They eat a lot of beans and tofu, but they're not completely plant-based. And so it is, I just try to be really respectful of their choices. And I think one of the most powerful tools we really have as grandparents is our own example. And what we try to do is we try to eat a lot of meals together. And when we do that, when we eat meals together, they're by default plant-based because that's how we eat. So we want everybody to be able to enjoy the food. So this evening, I made plant-based cabbage rolls, and we're going to be sharing that with them, and a couple of vegetables, and we'll be having a really nice plant-based meal. And I think that's really important. And then when the children, of course, are at our house, I really try to get them involved with food, just growing food in the garden, picking food from the garden, tasting what's in the garden, bringing them to the farmer's market, getting them to help me prepare foods. I like to make sure the foods are fun for them, just making them beautiful, making them delicious. It's almost Halloween. Last Halloween, I made a veggie tray with a skull out of cauliflower, and then all the veggies around. It was really cute. And they like that sort of thing. And so I think it's just really important to introduce them to lots of really healthy, delicious plant-based foods. I like to share, I bought a couple of giant pomelos at the Asian store, and, brought that to our last little family potluck, and, cracked it open and taught them about that. I love taking them to ethnic restaurants and exposing them to, ethnic vegetarian foods. There are just so many ways that we can do that. Once, my daughter was raised pretty much, completely vegetarian. But so she understands, I don't have to have that conversation. She knows why we do this. But my grandchildren, if they ask a question, I am very honest and open with them when I answer. I don't criticize or judge what they do in their family. I just share with love why we do what we do. And as they get older, I will share more. And, I hope that I can be a really positive influence. And I have to tell you, it hurts to see them eating non-vegan food. I don't like it. And I hope that in time I'll have enough influence that they'll choose not to do that anymore. But at this stage, I feel like I have to be respectful of their parents' choices.
Yeah. Thank you, Brenda. That's super important. Our relationship with our children is super important. And I was sharing recently how I often will do it through story, because my grandkids love story. And so they wanted a creepy story. And so I told them a creepy story about a forest being cut down and all the animals scrambling and having no home left. And my grandson said, "Oh, Oma, that's why you're vegan." So a little bit longer than that, but I'm just summarizing it. I wonder if the grandmothers can put up their hands and come up. We're going to go on gallery view. And Brenda, do you have time for a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
I know that you're having a family dinner, and we really appreciate this. Was Brenda's family dinner time that she's postponed to be here. Is there any other grandmothers that would like to come up, please? I know Liz is here, and who else is here? Let me take a peek. Deborah, are you up? Yes, you are.
Turn your cameras on.
Turn your cameras on if you're a grandmother, Allison. There we go. There we go. So if any of the grandmothers would like to introduce yourself to Brenda and say kind of what you've been enjoying about being a vegan grandmother, and any questions, and then we'll open up questions to the rest of our tribe here.
Liz, do you want to join us?
I'm here. Do you see me? I'm
Liz
here at the bottom. There I am. Hello.
Hi.
I ate the whole thing, you guys.
It looked so good.
It was good. It was good. Oh, I think Debbie wants to go. You're muted, Debbie.
She needs to be unmuted, Debbie.
Hit it, but it says the host has.
No, Debbie.
Okay. I have never been able to make the raised hand feature work in chat, which is why I was waving frantically. I am unmuted. Yes.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say quickly that in our family, we are sharing Brenda's dilemma and making up our responses as we go along. And I think it's going to work out for the best ultimately, because young people are so open to changing the way we're all living collectively. And I also wanted to tell Brenda that 18 years ago, my son was walking along the beach in Honolulu, and there was an MD cardiologist giving an outdoor lecture on heart health. This cardiologist said, if you choose a vegan diet, your heart will wither away and stop functioning, and you will drop dead. This was a cardiologist, MD. And
no.
just got a note at the other end of the spectrum. We've been hearing about actually a neurologist who was treating my husband's cousin at Mass General, and this cousin had Alzheimer's, and the chief neurologist at Mass General several years ago said, be as vegan as you can, as often as you can. We can't help you with any more drugs. And just yesterday, I got on the Harvard Medical School email thing. If you want to build your cognitive reserve to avoid any kind of mental decline, the first thing that they list that you should do before exercise is follow a plant-based diet. So I thought that was a lot of progress. From your heart muscle is going to wither, because now all the cardiologists are telling people to eat a Mediterranean diet. And I said to my guy who was checking me, oh, I'm vegan. He said, oh, that's even better than Mediterranean. So it's
awesome. How far we've come.
Mm.
And yet, I have a little story to share, and I'm sure people are tired of hearing this, but I had 3 sons, and the youngest one had an eating disorder and was unable to he was able to get a lot of recovery from a program that was out of state that would allow him to be a vegan. And then, anyway, long story, he ended up not being able to get a program that would allow him to be a vegan. Veganism was considered to be a symptom of the disease. And so he died about 2 years ago. And so, and so he was going to, had he lived, advocate with nutritionists. And Brenda, you just bring a light, to hear you talking and the progress you've made in your profession. And that story is to highlight how important your the work that you're doing is, because you've heard stories here from Debbie and others that, how the medical profession, including nutritionists, tell us that, not to be a vegan. And I really think he'd be alive today if the nutritionist there at that program had been able to.
Well, Dawn, I'm so sorry to hear about your son. I'm so sorry. And I have to say that, when I first wrote the original Becoming Vegan, we had an entire chapter on eating disorders.
Oh.
And and the comprehensive edition, we go into eating disorders in some detail. I've actually created a continuing ed course for dietitians on eating disorders as well, because of that myth that vegan, because the problem is so many people who have an eating disorder become vegan as a way to legitimize removal of high calorie foods. And they aren't ethically vegan. It's almost like a pseudo vegan as an excuse to eliminate foods. And I can totally understand when a person has an eating disorder, if they're a pseudo vegan, then their recovery will involve incorporating back foods that but if they're an ethical vegan, it is very dangerous to try to get them to eat non-vegan food.
It really,
and there's no reason for it. We can provide reasonable, calorically dense foods. We can provide a beautifully balanced diet that is respectful of their ethical stance. And so I'm so sorry that
thank you. We explained his grandmother was vegan, his mother was vegan. He had been vegetarian since he was 12. He died at the age of your older son, 39. And anyway, so thank you for the work that you're doing. And so the other thing I wanted to say was I really appreciate what you were saying about working with children and grandchildren, because the only other son who had a child is the only one who's not a vegan or vegetarian. And so I've been struggling throughout this VCOM this weekend. I've been putting a question: what do you say to your grandchildren? What do you say to how do you approach that? Because I don't want to be the nagging girl. Oh, here she comes again with her darn. So I really appreciate what you were saying about approaching our grandchildren, because it's a challenge. And
it's like religion. Yeah, it's like, I mean, you can, I think that it is so similar, and
Yes.
so you can't, I mean, I think that you have to be respectful of where they're coming from, but as your grandchildren get more and more curious, you can share a little bit more about why you do what you do, and even share a film or share, some resources, something like that. And I think quite often, they're sponges. They just keep learning from you. And I just hope that that will happen for mine. But you don't know. We can't.
I love the analogy of being a religion, because it really is. It's shoving your religion, your lifestyle in their face, and you do have to be careful and respectful of their, even though, like you said, it hurts us to be sitting.
Yeah, it
Thank
sure
you,
does.
Brenda. You brought so much to this. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I'm reminded of the presentation that Susan Hargreaves made earlier today about how she works with children in the schools, and it was so inspiring. And to see the resources that she has created, the books, the course outlines, the movies, the textbooks, all of those resources for youth and teens. And I found that so inspiring. So as grandmothers, I need to learn so much more about her work.
Thank you for that. She's amazing. She's got some wonderful, wonderful resources.
Yeah.
Liz, I loved your session. I want to go make some tofu fish. It looks so good.
Good.
I've got a plane ticket to come over and have you make it.
Yeah. Oh, I've enjoyed it too and learned a lot. And I liked Susan's presentation as well. And I've seen others that get in the classroom and they do really great lessons, but then you release the kids to the cafeteria and all the learning is gone. They have no food options in the cafeteria. So they resort back to it's like one step forward, two steps back. So how do we fix that? What is the magic cure?
College.
College?
They can choose their own.
Their own.
Well, no, I think we need to hold schools accountable. If they're going to serve it in the cafeteria, you need to show them how it's made. Right? Yeah. What's the secret all about? Yeah. They're just starting to realize that they've got a secret. And that's why they don't like me, Donna, is because I've made it known that I see you're keeping a secret. Come on now, let's talk about it. I want to session with the school psychologist.
Yeah. Huh? I love the project you're working on now, a two-sided book.
The two-sided book? Yeah, I was glad to see Lisa. So we'll pick that up again, you guys. I've had lots going on. Family, friend died. My mom ill, but I keep things moving forward a little bit each day. Thank you, Allison, for reviewing my recipes. I'm so excited about working with Rosa and you guys.
Yeah, I've been preparing tofu in different ways, things that I've learned from your book. And my daughter came home late the other night, and there was a meal prepared for her, and it was put away for her, and she warmed it up and she wrote me a message like at midnight. She said, "Oh my gosh, this food is so delicious." So I had made a tofu dish for her. Yeah.
Good. Well, my book is
book.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, it's supposed to be an inspiration for chefs to take it and turn it into what they want it to be, just a guide post type of thing.
It reminds me when my daughter was little, I used to pack her lunch. And she used to go to school proudly. At that time, she said, she told all her friends she was vegetarian, but she had a cookie that was, it uses ingredients that are Peruvian, so you probably wouldn't have heard of them. But anyway, her friends really liked these cookies. So she started selling the cookies at school to her friends. But my message is that when the food is delicious, then it has a way of making its way into other kids' hands.
Yeah, and vegan is the new cool in school. My grandson tells me kids swarm around him to look at his lunch. What's in your, is that vegan? That's vegan. And he gets personal notes. I love your grandma's cookies.
Yes, grandmothers and cookies. If anyone that's listening has any questions, you can put it in the chat. You can raise your hands if you want to know a little bit about what the grandmothers are up to. We're on climatehealers.org. We've been writing a lot of letters. We gather together every Wednesday night and share. We share a lot. And you know, we get to support each other. Sometimes, you know, seeing a lot. Judy's here. She's probably our longest time vegan. Judy, do you want to share a little bit about what it's been like to be a vegan for? Has it been almost 50 years, Judy, that you've been a vegan?
Well, vegetarian first, and then vegan. I've been vegan almost 30 years.
Oh,
So,
30.
but 20 more vegetarian. So, anyway, yeah. So did Brenda leave?
Brenda had to leave. Yeah. So I figured you might have had a question for her, and I was going to try to scoot you in there, but we could just contact her.
Yeah.
So what is it like for you, Judy, over the years? What changes have you seen?
Oh my gosh. It's like Brenda, you can hardly believe it because, you know, I didn't know there were maybe 1 or 2 vegetarian cookbooks back in the 70s. And I'd actually have to look and see when we started getting this, like thousands of vegan cookbooks coming out. But back then, it was very hard to find ingredients. And most of the stores that were health food stores just had vitamins in them. And so we lived in Kansas, and so there wasn't, I don't think I even knew what tofu was for a long time, and plant-based milks and that sort of thing. And I remember what Brenda was talking about, the cheese that tasted like plastic and stuff like that. So it was a matter of, you know, being creative and trying to, you know, just eliminate, you know, animal products and come up with something. And but man, I mean, compare that to now, and it's unbelievable how far we have come as far as education and cookbooks and all the speakers and all the experts, dietitians and doctors like you all have been saying that are actually coming around and seeing. So yeah, huge changes. Yeah, sea changes. Tsunami of changes. So yeah, I think it will
remind us. Yeah.
What, Donna, did you want to say something?
I was just saying it's good. Thank you for reminding us that we've, as much as frustrated as we are, how far we've come. So that's very encouraging. Thank you.
Well, it is, and anyone who's really young or who just became vegan recently may not realize how far we've come. You know, they came into it and here's all these books, you know, cookbooks and other books about it. And so it's like, yeah, well, that's kind of normal. Well, it wasn't a long time ago. So it's amazing. But I was gonna say, before Brenda left, I guess it's not really a question, but it's interesting. My grandkids are now 15, 17, and 20, and which is unbelievable to me. But anyway, When they were little, they asked me questions like we were talking about. And I could read them vegan storybooks and things like that. Now, I ask them almost every time when I'm around them, so you have any vegan friends? They have none, zero. The only vegans they know are me and Michael. That's it. That's all they know. And so I just have to go, we are holding the vegan flag for those kids, because when they do run into someone who's vegan, they can go, oh, there's more. It's not just the grandparents. And, maybe come back around and say, now, what is it now? So, but it's very strange. They've grown up in a very affluent community in Kansas where barbecue is the big thing. And, in the Kansas City airport, you would land and see T-shirts that said, I eat pig butts. I cannot lie. That was a T-shirt. And then there was another T-shirt about cow tipping. And because it's like cows and animal agriculture is just gigantic in this city. And it's part of its identity, Kansas City. So but nevertheless, like I said, they have just don't know any other vegans. Isn't that strange? I mean, you'd think by now they would in school. And I say, now, what about your teachers? Any of them vegan? No, nobody. Wow. So yeah. So anyway.
Congratulations to you, Judy, for being vegan in a world that's so not vegan. I want to let you all know that thinking my son's father was a 3rd generation Seventh-day Adventist. And it's interesting through history to see how veganism has tried to emerge, right? With Ellen White, the prophet for their church. I think it was like back in the late 1800s. And it was the same time, when was Upton Sinclair's book published? There was awareness, there was new awareness. And anyway, Ellen White envisioned a vegan world, and their church was founded. There were vegans, and I was part of that church in the 80s, but you know what? I didn't see it. I didn't want to hear it. And guess what? All the Adventists were being seduced by the standard American diet. So we go to church and they'd have their little church store with the vegan tofu in a can or whatever the products that they had and the potlucks. And then you'd go home and we'd have barbecued hamburgers. And as long as it was not as long as it wasn't pork or shellfish or, certain biblical things that were dirty meats. If it wasn't dirty meat, then you could eat beef and you could eat eggs and milk and all the rest. So I saw that shift of the Adventists, the original Adventists who were really into it in the early days and founded Loma Linda University. And then the standard American diet lured them in. And I went into the Glendale Hospital to the cafeteria to talk to the management there to try to sell them tofu. And they had meat on the menu. I said, what happened to the Adventist hospitals? You guys are serving meat now? And they said, yes, we had to expand our menu to attract more patients. So, it comes, it surfaces, and it's pushed back. And it comes, it's like the tide. It's breathing and it's growing, but it keeps getting bigger. And we are on a roll now. It's the tsunami of opportunity right now. And Judy, your story is amazing. I've been to Kansas City, living in a country that's surrounded by animal agriculture and celebrating meat all the time. No vegans in the school. We got to get a vegan club started at your local high school. You got to go to the library and get a vegan cooking program started at your public library.
Or pen pals. If there's none there, expand them.
Find somebody to do it. You got to find somebody.
Do it. And as a former English teacher, if your grandkids have had to read Moby Dick, I want to recommend this book. It's absolutely enthralling. It's about a whale seeking peace with humans. It's Sounding by Hank Searles. Extraordinary. It's the anti-Moby Dick novel. It's been rediscovered, and I have the rights, and I'm trying to storm the bastions of Hollywood to get someone to make a film out of it, because all the documentaries are fantastic, but fiction has a unique power to affect people. Sounding by Hank Searles. I recommend that you gift it to your grandchildren and their teachers.
Debbie. Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to add what Elizabeth was talking about, that the Unity Church was founded about the same time as the Seventh-day Adventists, and it was vegan also,
Incredible.
or nearly vegan, and that got pushed back.
Yeah.
To get more people to join the church. Yeah. And I know
tied in and out.
Yeah.
Right, Donna.
Thank you, grandmothers. We're going into our open mic, and please stay and join us to speak. You know, I was just going to close with one thing. My granddaughter was eating a cheese stick that her little friend gave her at her son's hockey game. She's 4, and her friend and she looked up at me, and I went, and she looked at her little 4-year-old friend. She's vegan, and so my daughter looked at her mother and said, does he know what vegan is? And she makes this really disgusting face, like we're disgusting. And she went, and normally my daughter would have laughed at her disgusting face, but she didn't anymore. So it's not a joke anymore. She knows it's not a joke. So if we're not vegan, it's not something to make fun of, even though my friend told me to just watch the first couple minutes of a new Netflix movie that came out called Old Dads. And I'm going to end with this so we can go into open mic. And in the very beginning of Old Dads, he was talking about becoming a dad at a later age. And he said, you know, his wife said some of his issues are because he was raised in the family he was raised in. But he said, I don't whine about it. That's what vegans do. So let's bring that to open mic, because you know what Silash says, and many other people, if we're getting that big in Netflix, a new movie, pretty crappy movie, but a new movie that's criticizing us right in the beginning of the script, we are making headway. So thank you, grandmothers, for being that force.
Thank you, Tami.
Thank
for
you.
pulling us together.